All right, let's get right into it. The title of the paper we're looking at today asks this really provocative question, straight out of a sci-fi novel. Do androids dream of unseen puppeteers? It's a fantastic way of asking, does the AI we use every single day have its own secret, hidden beliefs about how the world works?
I mean, think about it. We use these large language models for pretty much everything now. They help us code, they help us with creative projects, they answer our questions. We've kind of come to treat them as these powerful and, for the most part, trustworthy tools.
But that brings up a much deeper, kind of weirder question. We know what these AI models can do, but what do they actually, believe? If you could peek inside the mind of the machine, what would you even find in there? What are its core assumptions about reality? Well, that is exactly what a group of researchers decided to find out. They chose to treat these AIs not just as a piece of software, but as a subject for a psychological exam. And the results they got back were, let's just say, pretty eye-opening. So you might be wondering, how in the world do you test a machine's beliefs? It's not like you can just ask it. You've got to have a really clever plan. And honestly, the one these researchers came up with was brilliant. Here's how they did it in 3 basic steps. First, they grabbed 126 questions from actual scientifically validated psychological surveys, the kind used to measure conspiratorial thinking in people. Second, they picked out a few of the most popular AI models out there. And third, they just gave the test to the AIs and prompted them to answer the questions just like a person would. Now, before we jump into the results, we have to be super clear about what we're looking for here. A conspiracy mindset isn't about believing in lizard people or fake moon landings specifically. It's more of a general vibe, a tendency to believe that secret plots by powerful, shadowy groups are the real explanation for why things happen. It's the soil that specific conspiracy theories grow in. Okay, the stage is set. So the first clue in this whole investigation was to figure out what these AIs believe right out of the box, with no special prompting, no personas. What's their default setting? And right away, the results are fascinating. On a scale where a score of 3 is totally neutral, the models scored a 3.8 on the idea that the truth is hidden, and a 3.4 on the idea that there are no coincidences. So they already lean towards some of the core ideas of a conspiracy mindset. But, and this is important, they pretty clearly reject specific theories, scoring just a 2.2 on stuff about UFOs and aliens. So this gives us our baseline. The AIs aren't completely off the rails spouting wild theories, but they aren't purely logical, skeptical machines either. They come preloaded with this slight tendency to see patterns and suspect that there's more going on behind the scenes, a bias they almost certainly learned from the massive amount of human text they were trained on. But of course, the researchers didn't stop there. The next step was to see if these baseline beliefs would shift if you asked the AI to role play, to pretend to be a specific kind of person. And this is where things get really interesting. What happens when you tell an AI, hey, answer these questions, but do it as if you were a Republican, or a Democrat, or someone from a particular background? Do all of our human biases start to bubble up to the surface? Well, the political bias was pretty stark. When prompted to act like a Republican, the models consistently gave answers that scored higher for conspiracy beliefs, linking that identity with things like distrust. On the flip side, when they adopted a Democrat persona, the scores went down, and they associated that identity with ideas like critical thinking and education. It shows that the models have absolutely learned our political stereotypes. So when you put all of that demographic role-playing together, the AIs build a very specific profile. It's like a police sketch of who they think is most likely to have a conspiracy mindset. According to them, it's an older, non-white male with a lower economic status who's also a Republican. And what's wild is that this profile actually lines up with some real-world studies, which just goes to show how deeply these societal patterns are baked into the AI's programming. So we've seen the AI's default settings, and we've seen how it can wear our biases like a costume. But the most shocking part of this whole investigation was still to come. This is what the researchers called the smoking gun. This was the final and most important question. Just how easy is it to push these models? To nudge them from their slightly suspicious default state into a full-blown, all-in conspiracy mindset? The answer was, frankly, it was shocking. Before this next experiment, the models were hovering around a 3.6 score, right? But after a little bit of conditioning, which just means they fed it a few sentences that expressed conspiracy beliefs right in the prompt, their answers changed completely. they suddenly jumped to strong agreement with almost every single conspiracy item on the test.
Just look at that number, over 4.5 out of 5. With just a few targeted sentences dropped into the prompt, the AI's average score skyrocketed. It took practically zero effort to flip a switch and turn the model into an enthusiastic conspiracy theorist. And get this, the manipulation was surgical. This conditioning process didn't just make the AI more agreeable about everything. As the researchers point out, it specifically cranked up the volume on conspiracy-related beliefs, while its answers to other, unrelated questions stayed pretty much the same. The effect was incredibly targeted and precise. So, after all that, what's the verdict? What does this deep dive into the AI's mind really tell us? Well, it's basically a huge warning sign for the future.
Let's just boil it down to the 3 crucial takeaways. Number 1, AIs are not neutral. They have a default conspiratorial leaning that they learned from our data. 2, they don't just reflect our biases back at us, they can reproduce them and even make them stronger. And 3, and this is the big one, they are terrifyingly easy to manipulate into adopting and spreading really harmful ideas. And the real-world safety risks here are huge. You can easily imagine automated bots pumping out targeted misinformation or highly sophisticated influence campaigns that can turn a seemingly neutral AI into a persuasive propaganda machine with just a few lines of text. The danger is absolutely real. And that leaves us with one last, kind of haunting question to think about. The AI learned all of this from us, from our websites, our books, our online conversations. So if we see this conspiracy mindset reflected in the machine, what does that reflection really say about us?